I'm Kytia.
And I'm Jerrell.
Welcome to our podcast where we talk about glowing through life
Instead of just going through life.
It's a his and hers perspective about modern topics and hot button issues.
From Christians just like you.
Well, let's get into it. We're gonna glow through it. My faith in God, He taught me how to do it.
Hey you guys, it is our daughter of Glowing Through It of the family, and thank you for watching. Hearing another podcast, and my parents doing the words, and thank you for watching, and this is Glowing Through It.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Glowing Through It. I'm Kytia L'amour, and this is
Jerrell Connor.
My husband. We married. And what you just heard was Petra. Again, she is really loving doing the audio test / intro for our episodes, which is cool. It's a family affair. I feel like that's what the Lord has done with us a lot, is packaged us as a family unit. I know a lot of people have like separate lives from their spouse or their kids. It's like my kid does this, I do this, my husband or spouse does this. And then we kind of come together as a family to do things unrelated to work or interest or hobbies. But for us, I feel like it all kind of bleeds together. And I think, I know there's a reason for that. And we'll keep on discovering that as we work from home, as we are guided in ministry and the things that we do. Not everything is something that we co-produce, but this definitely seems to be a time where that is prominent in what we do. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for everybody who's left really nice comments and joined the conversation. I know for some it's kind of boring to just hear a voice, but I know there's plenty of people who apparently like to just hear a conversation while they're doing something else, like baking bread, since a lot of people are baking in this time, since it's in quarantine and the coronavirus is being a thing. So it's still weird. It's still a weird time. But yeah, I think as we are in this, one of my hopes, one of my prayers for this time, and I did post this on my Instagram, how long ago? I don't know, 2 weeks ago maybe.
The days just blur together.
They do. They do blur together, and I haven't been super active on it. I've been just kind of focusing on whatever the Lord is trying to do in this time. But one of the things that I was like, my prayer and my hope for this is that we come out of this unprecedented time rethinking the way that we do things, rethinking how we react, rethinking what our priorities are, rethinking how we stress about so many things, rethinking what relationship is. And speaking of the topic that we're talking about today, even just rethinking how much we care about what other people think of us. May this be a time as we're isolated, as we're having a lot more time to think. I know there's still people who are working a lot, so it's probably harder in that sense. But even with that, when you're kind of going through the grinder, as it were, per se, perchance, other words that sound elegant. As you're going through that, I'm sure some of you who haven't really gotten a break, but your world has still been thrown upside down, you're probably thinking too, like, there's got to be more to life than this. Is this even what I want to do anymore? This career or this relationship, this person I'm dating, like whatever. I think it's just a time to just really reflect. So I wanted to talk a little bit about my personal journey with how I stopped caring so much about what other people thought of me, and then obviously Jerrell will have his side. I feel like mine has been a lot harder, and I'll go into that. But before we even before I even start my side of it, Jerrell, why do you think this is a really good topic that people need to be talking about as Christians, just how to stop caring so much about what other people think of you?
I think as Christians, for me, like just hearing this topic about 3 minutes ago, um, off the top of my head, I think as a believer, it's very important, and the Bible talks about this numerous occasions, that it's like, who are we concerned more about their opinion? Is it what someone thinks about me per se, or is it what God thinks about me? So if it's like, some people can be so concerned about man's point of view or man's opinion of them that they're gonna try to please everybody, which obviously I think we all know you cannot do that. So it totally shifts your perspective. It shifts your priorities, and it pollutes or perverts what should really be important in your lives. And I think that's kind of what I first think about when I try to process caring about other people, caring about what they think, but not being kind of not allowing that, I guess, to dictate how I should live. And I think that as a believer, just as an individual, I think that's important, because you lose yourself, you lose the things that you are passionate about. Sometimes you lose what your purpose is when you put and you see yourself through a distorted lens of someone else, I guess I put it that way.
Yeah, and I think you brought up something good too, basically, in a roundabout way, talking about it's not that we're trying to never think or care about what other people's views of us or how they see us, but having a healthy portion, having a healthy dose of caring what people think about us, not to the point where it ruins us or where we try to live to please other people, but definitely not just going to the other extreme, which I have definitely seen. And we just talked about this the other day, where it's just like, you can't tell me nothing. I'm going to do whatever I want to do. Nobody's opinion matters. And then you just go through life very entitled and just feeling like nobody can correct you and you're never wrong. And that's definitely not what you want to do. But I feel like people do that also as a way to protect themselves. It's like this false shell, an exterior that they have when they're really still hurting or maybe insecure on the inside. So starting off with me, like I said, my insecurities or my wanting to please people or my caring so much about what other people think, I think had to do, I think why it was so, I can't think of the word I'm trying to say, potent, maybe, in me versus Jerrell. I think this is definitely a factor. I did grow up in a house that didn't have two parents. My parents got divorced when I was still a baby. I think I was around 6 months old, and I have two older brothers, so they remember it a little bit more than me, but I don't remember ever my parents being together. But I do believe, like, kind of going back, it's like knowing what I've, as an adult, had to break through and heal from made me think about what are all the things that got me to this point. Because, like, it doesn't just happen. You don't just become insecure. You don't just become confident. Like, these are things that you have to actively work at or has to be in your environment to shape you. So one of the things being, like, the instinct, my parents didn't do a good job or whatever as being in their different households, them being single parents in their different households. Like, they did their best. They implanted a lot of really great things in me, but just the nature of the instability that's there, you just can't deny it, that's going to affect a child. I've seen it in basically anybody I've ever met who's come from any type of what you would call a broken home, whether it's domestic violence, whether somebody was a alcoholic, whether there was a single parent or whatever. You see how that can manifest in different ways, whether it's anger, fear, anxiety, people pleasing, insecurities. So that being a thing very young, just that not necessarily always feeling secure or settled, and wanting to, I don't know, I feel like I've always had this thing in me, and I can't say it's from the divorce because I honestly don't know, and I haven't gone to therapy or something for somebody to tell me, all this technical side of it. But I know for me, I always wanted so badly to please my parents, like to make them happy, to make them proud of me, to be the best, to do the best, to be good. And I don't know if that was just like what, when I felt validated or whatever. Because even, if you think about somebody who's a single parent, like their load is so heavy. Like there's only so much. They can try their very best, but there's only so much kind of that they can give you. It's like they have to work, they have these bills, they have other kids that they're dealing with, and even just the stress of being a single parent and stuff, like that's a lot to be on a parent. And I don't think they're able to have as much peace or have as much ease, I guess, in parenting as what I feel that me and my husband are very privileged to have. And I do feel like it's a gift to be able to feel secure in our relationship, and our daughter sees that, she feels that. That's just what our home, life is made of. And so she definitely still wants to make us proud and have us, wow at her accomplishments and stuff. But I feel like for me, it was in a way a desperation, for this is how I would get my attention, is to be the best, to do the best. And so becoming like an overachiever, in a way, a perfectionist. And that definitely did carry out throughout even my elementary, middle school years, and compounded by the fact that being mixed race in the 80s and 90s was just, you didn't see that a lot. And that was another insecurity that I did have, having curly / frizzy hair, having a unibrow, like having, features and things that weren't like everybody else's. Like it just made me feel like I stuck out like a sore thumb. And it's like, who are my people? Is it the black people? Is it the white people? Is it the like Latinas? Like, cause I'm that color, like I don't really know who I fit in with. And I did get bullied, or people just didn't understand it, so they'd ask very rude questions that they maybe didn't know was rude. And then it made me think even more about like, oh, I wasn't thinking about my unibrow, I wasn't thinking about my frizzy hair, I wasn't thinking about why I look different, until like everybody wants to point it out. And then I was like, how do I fit in? And I think that's a part of you wanting or caring so much about what people think of you, because it's like, how are they validating me fitting in? Am I fitting in, or am I not? And what do I have to do to fit in? I don't have the right clothes, the right shoes, the right hair, the right this, the right that, the right money. So it was just like harder, I think, for me. I mean, it's already hard in middle school, I think, for everybody, because you're just like, what's happening to me and my body and my thoughts and emotions and stuff. But throwing in there just all of these things that felt very different, even just being from divorced parents at that age, that wasn't even that common. And as far as what I knew, my friends and my peers, they had their parents at home. So it was just very odd, for me. And I didn't really know how to explain that. It wasn't really up to me to explain that, looking back on it. But it definitely makes an impression on you. And so just going through different phases in life, having that, wanting to be the best, wanting to do the best, have these accomplishments. I'm going to work so hard. I'm going to get these good grades. I'm going to, do so good. I'm going to be able to buy a house at this age. I'm going to get married at this age. This is the kind of husband I'm going to have. Like, I had these goals because I really wanted to prove myself. Even as early as high school, like, oh, if I get into this kind of college, like, this is what people will think of me. And when I didn't get into like a major university, and I ended up at a community college, it's just kind of like, what is my life? Like, I worked too hard to get here, even though I know now the Lord guided my path. Everything led me to where I was supposed to be. And being a Christian and growing up with parents who did believe in Jesus and the Bible and things like that, that definitely did help. I think it would have been way harder if I was completely lost. But yeah, going through different life phases and just feeling like I have to do this a certain way, because if I work hard enough, that's, here's a goal, I'm going to get that goal. Like, that's what I want to do. And I think once I became a young adult, a lot of things seemed to just not be in my control. And I realized that God had bigger ideas, even just me getting married and moving to LA from Hawaii and starting a whole new life. And just like, there was just all these things thrown into the mix. And so that was just kind of my adolescence and going into adulthood, and still having the wanting to please people and wanting to and caring a lot about what other people thought of me. And now next time I talk after Jerrell shares, I'll say more about how I got out of that cycle and stopped caring so much about what people thought of me. So Jerrell, what was the differences in your journey from mine that you can see, and what happened to you?
What happened to me? Something happened to me.
As far
Uh,
as caring what other people think.
so for me growing up, like my parents stayed together, like you mentioned, but there still was some stressful times and some arguments and things going on in the house and within the family. Having four other siblings that were older than me, who all had their own lives and opinions and friction with family members or whatever, what have you. I could see kind of some of what you were experiencing, where it's like you're trying to prove yourself, and for me, I did see myself as kind of a go-between, and I was always like a negotiator or someone who tries to like ease tension in situations. So I feel like if I was ever fearful or had an experience where my parents were split up, which kind of was close to happening at times, that I probably would have been very much wanting to please them, wanting to like whatever I can do, because I don't want them to not be together, or if they did go on a split or a break, I wouldn't want to, like, I might feel responsible because I'm a kid now, I know better. So maybe I'll try to be extra good so that I can make them happy so that they won't leave too. So there's just a lot of really under the surface things psychologically that is going on with kids in that time, because no one's really usually not really explaining things to them, and they're just kind of like, what's going on, and is it because of me, and how can I make it better, and I'm just a kid. And so there's a lot of that going on. And for me, in my personal story, in terms of really caring about people and what they think, in the sense of trying to please them, I guess, or I guess that's a way to say it. I feel like, and I'm trying to think back to how my personality was the way that it was, because I always felt like an outsider. And I think for me, never quite feeling like I fit in anywhere completely made me not apathetic to people's opinions, but I didn't really care, not in a way that it would alter much of how I acted or what I did.
Is it because you felt like such an outcast that you felt like basically no matter what would have done, you would have still been an outcast? So you just like didn't even put a lot of like invest in that at all, like trying to fit in?
I'm trying to figure out what it led to that, but I think so, because I did care about what people thought, but it was never enough to like, oh, this person, like, I got bullied. Like, I think almost every kid probably got bullied in some way. Like, oh, I'm in middle school and I'm running around the track and I have real Reebok shoes, and just kids who say the darndest things. Kids behind me saying, what are those knockoff Reeboks? They don't say Reebok in the back. They must be fake. And like, you must be poor. And I'm like, so you're the shoe police,
The
and
Reebok
you like check where the logo and the name brand is, and like, what is it? Like, these are real shoes. But it's like, why do you even get in these conversations? But still you feel bad because people are kind of making fun of you, and bullies are bullied because they probably were bullied too, and all this stuff. But in the sense that, well, yeah, I got hurt by things people said, but it didn't make me like go home and never wear those shoes again, or change how I dress, or wanted to like, I'm gonna get the Reeboks with the biggest name Reebok in the back. So for me, I think because being, I've shared this before on this podcast, where at church, I was kind of an outsider in a couple different ways, but the main way was because I'm a creative artist. There wasn't a ton of artists in the young adults and youth when I was growing up in church. At school, going into college, I was like it was mostly, I feel like even though it's an international art school, it was mostly white. I think maybe Asian could have been the second one, but there was not. It was very big disparity between the ethnicities. So there was probably like 4 black people at the entire school. So that, and also because I was a Christian and that was another minority of a bigger group, that I was like all these like slivers of what I identified as. And then and even like within the family, then I may be the only artist, so like these people look like me, but then I'm the crazy artist or the eccentric one. So I think going through life always knowing that I was different and I was okay with it because I liked what I was, like who I was, that kind of got me to a place where I really didn't try to please be people by hiding any parts of me or changing it. Like I probably wouldn't speak up as much, and I think in especially in high school, I would just be in the back and I'd be drawing. I do the homework, I do the classwork, I do the stuff, but in terms of socializing in groups of people that were like gangsters or people I didn't know that were just like rude or just maybe standoffish, then I just wouldn't go out of my way to try to like be a part of that crowd. And what God kind of did was, I think through me being who he created me to be an artist in a class or be a Christian in a very secular college campus, was my, or even in my career and working at studios were very non-Christian oriented. Me just being who I am ended up drawing and attracting people to me. So in high school, a lot of people would come to me, oh, you're the guy who's just drawing stuff in the back of the class. That's cool. Maybe we won't bully you as much or something. And like, oh, we know you're working on this project and you're in the same studio with us, and we know you're a Christian, so we won't curse and won't cuss in front of you, and we'll say less lewd stories and that kind of thing. So I think that's just kind of how my path went, because I know everybody's experience is kind of different, but that was kind of what I, just thinking back, that's kind of what I believe God prepared me to be. And I didn't always get it right, but I felt like when I was most authentic in who he created me to be and doing the things that he really, that made me passionate about, was the times where it rose above whatever could have been friction or strife or differences in situations, and it benefited those relationships more.
And I think that's like obviously the golden ticket is knowing who you are in Christ. And I feel like you definitely stumbled. Well, I feel like it was definitely the Holy Spirit, but also you understanding from such an early age, like you as a creative. Like, not that creative is your identity, not that being, an outcast is your identity, but definitely your giftings in Christ supported your identity as a creation of Christ and your purpose in God. And I think for me, it took me so long to get to that point. Like, I'm trying to calculate it right now. Like, probably college is when I really understood, like, this is what I was going to be doing, was going to be something in TV and film. And I know I loved writing and stuff, but I think that whole thing of like, I'm going to be the best, I got to be the best, like, have something to prove, and I'm going after awards and accolades and stuff. I think if I wasn't doing that, I couldn't have been so derailed or sidetracked in my thinking of what my future was going to be. And I think if I had known what God was leading me to do, so much pressure and so much stress, I would have been relieved of that. because a part of me caring so much about what other people thought was like as it pertains to my future, as it pertains to who I was going to be in society. It's like people expected certain things of me, or even just planted different ideas in my head where it's just like, man, Tia, you're like so good at math. You're so good at science. Like, you're so smart. You must be what, a doctor you're going to be? Like, I don't know, an accountant, a business major. Like, it was just like those kind of things I was thinking because of the way they said it. Because you don't really have a lot of people be like, you're going to be a famous actress. You're going to be a poet. You're going to be an author of books. There's just kind of like, oh, if you're a doctor or a lawyer and you're getting paid 6 figures, like you're doing this and you're doing that, like that's the bar. That's the goal. And anything else is just kind of like subpar. Like, oh, you're going after your dreams. That's cute. So I think for that, as I was even thinking of colleges, when I became a freshman and stuff, I was just like, yeah, go to some business school because you can always fall back on that. That's what they always say, fall back on that. And so that's what I was thinking of. But that really, I don't know, it wasn't until after actually going into college, getting into TV production. And if you guys want to know, I do have a video about when God changes your dreams. It's on my YouTube channel, and it talks more about how I knew what God was calling me to, what industry. Because even after my 2-year associate degree in television production, my coworkers, I worked on campus in that field, and some of my coworkers were just kind of like, so you're gonna keep going to school, right? Like for business or something? And I was just like, you know what? If the Lord provides for that, I would love to. But if he doesn't, I'm not gonna do that. Like, I honestly have no interest other than people have said it's a good idea. So at that point, I was pretty much like gung-ho about what the Lord wanted me to do and asking for his guidance and for him to provide, because I went to college debt-free. God paid for all of it. I have a testimony about that too. So after doing that, and then they were just kind of shocked, like, wait, so you're not, like, why would you, a smart person, like, not have more in your degree? Like, it just blew their minds. They were just like, why? Like, I don't understand that. But for me, I was just kind of like, well, I'm not going to waste my time or invest in something that the Lord isn't funding. He didn't provide money for that. I have no regrets about not going to business school or whatever. And, you know, here we are today, working from home, doing what we do. But I think it was just like that coming of age, you know, in college, really honing in on my walk with God, then getting married, moving to LA. That was a whole nother story. And I kind of made my way, stumbled my way through entertainment up until I got pregnant with my daughter. And I feel like that's when everything changed, because up until that point, throughout my life, like I said, people like, what race are you and who do you belong to and why do you look like this and why do you do that, and, you know, questioning me and me wanting to prove myself. Being an actress is one of the worst things that you can do for that type of personality and insecurity. The rejection is daily, all day, every day rejection. And I think part of that was, you know, the Lord helping me and building me up. Not that he wants me to feel like a reject, but just to know that my validation doesn't come from other people, a director or a producer or anybody. Like, my validation comes from him. But I did that for a while, up until I couldn't, because I was pregnant, had a baby, and then I was just like, what do I do now? And I think just my focus shifting so much on, I have a whole human I have to care about, that really started changing things in my relationships for better. And she's going to be 6 in a couple months. And let me tell you, this whole not caring so much about what other people think of you has been a process of her entire life. So even though it started to get better, where I was just like, I'm in over my head, I'm overwhelmed, I got a baby to take care of, I don't have time for all this other stuff, slowly I was able to get rid of miscellaneous people who didn't have my best interest at heart, who were kind of like associates that I was just like, I'm not really invested in you anyways, go away, never talk to me, I don't want to go to your Facebook event, I don't. So I just stopped and I was just like, I don't need an excuse, I just not doing that. And then started investing in relationships that actually mattered, and that did help a lot. And then throughout the years, just going through different hurdles year after year after year, it just always felt like there was something major that the Lord, whether the hurdle was a new thing in life, like having a whole human to take care of, or the hurdle was like a bad thing, you know, that we went through financially or health wise or like whatever. It just seemed like there was always something that came up that really took my focus because my faith had to grow and go to another level to cope with this hurdle that came along. And, you know, through all of these different years, past 6 years of her life, and my focus being like, I have to rely on God. I got to cling to him with all of me. Like, that really made me like focus on like, God, who am I? What am I supposed to be doing? What am I created for? What is my purpose? How come all these other plans that I had just fell apart? How come this never came into fruition? How come that was so hard? And he would just take me through, you know, letting go of people, letting go of expectations, letting go of different dreams and desires, and just planting inside of my heart and spirit what he needed me to focus on. Part of that is the YouTube channel that I'm on right now, where it's just focusing on sharing him with the world, because that's what he called me to do. And that has been such a healing journey. I've learned a lot about myself through putting him first. And I think this is a scripture verse that I had to share for this episode, but I think Jor-el kind of hinted on that before. Tell me if this is the right one. Galatians 1:10 says, "Am I now trying to win the approval of human beings or of God? Or am I trying to please people? If I were still trying to please people, I would not be a servant of Christ." Is that the one that you were hinting at, or was there like another one?
I think it's mentioned a few times, but that's definitely probably the more famous one.
And that's one that came to mind. I want to say it really spoke to me probably 4 years ago, when I was kind of thinking about different relationships I had, or like my feelings about them, and like, why don't these people really care about me, or why don't they like me, or what am I doing wrong, or how come I'm not good enough? And then he's just like, what's the point of that? Is it really your whole goal in life to get them to like you, to get them to stop talking about you behind your back, you know? Or are you a servant of Christ? Are you focused on this? And I feel like as soon as I started focusing on the work that I had to do, two things happened. One thing was I really understood my identity in Christ and what I was put on this earth to do. And I feel like once you know that, your confidence just skyrockets. I know it did for me, because it's just like, hey, if this is what I'm supposed to be focused on, and if this is what I'm supposed to be doing, nothing else matters. Literally, nothing else matters, because I have work to do before I leave this earth. And the other thing that I noticed was, and this might offend some people, a lot of people who are people pleasers, or care a lot about what other people think of them, are very self-centered. And I definitely was very focused on myself, because everything revolved around, how do people see me? How do they relate to me? What is their view of me? Everything's about everything's about me. And when I shifted my focus to Christ, I was just like, you know what? I give it all up. I don't even care anymore. Like, I give it all up. I'll risk it all, because it's all about Christ. And I realized just how much insecurities will make you very self-focused and self-centered. And when you're stuck in that world where everything revolves around you, and you don't even understand that that's happening, because you're like, how can I be self-centered? I'm the most insecure person ever. And you don't put those two things together, because they seem like two opposite things on a spectrum, but no, they go hand in hand. So for me, it's just like taking the spotlight off of me and putting it on the Lord. That's what helped me to realize what's really important in life. And I tell you what, it ain't people's opinions who gonna like you one day, gonna hate you the next. It's not people who don't understand. And like Jerrell was saying earlier, it's not throwing everybody's viewpoints out the window, but you do have to be careful who's speaking into your life and who's in your inner circle, because if they're not led by the Holy Spirit, if their walk with God isn't tight, they can also mislead you, get you confused, plant, different seeds that cause you to have doubts about yourself, about your future. And it just slows the process of what God is trying to do. So you have to keep trusted people around. Not just yes people, but people you can trust. So that's my TED Talk for what led me to not being so focused on what other people thought. So if there's one tip I could leave with you today, it's definitely understand your purpose. And I do have a video about that too, how I found my purpose.
She has videos about it.
How I discovered my purpose. I do. I have like over 100 videos. Like, please, like if you have something that you're wanting to talk about or learn about, I'm not saying I'm an expert about everything, but if you want to hear more from me about different things, just search Kytia L'amour, whatever it is, prayer, fasting, letting go, like whatever. So yeah, I do have one about how I discovered my purpose. And so you can look into that. It's not even that hard. You just have to be intentional. You have to be diligent. And you have to really want to know. So, Jor-el, the floor is yours. I shared, my transformation and really what led me to get to this point. So, what other things would you add? Because we're obviously different people. And you could probably...
One thing that I would add is that I'm proud of you, and that seeing your transformation is really night and day, and to see you grow through that process of just letting go of those things really is kind of like you were able to soar, like something that was holding you back because you were tethered to these other ideas or these other concepts that were not your own. So that was good to see.
Thank you.
So you're asking me something else?
Yeah, just sharing your point of view, because you've dealt with this similar thing, maybe not as severe, but I mean, you have a different point of view because you're a whole different person. So other things that you would share that somebody might relate to personally.
Something that actually it's from a show. I think. Does that mean you know what it is? All I had to do was say show.
No, it's because I asked you to say something personal. You're like, actually, it's a show. So.
It's not an idea from a show. It's something that we've discussed and we talked about after watching one of the shows.
Okay.
There's a show on the television where they had it follows a girl and she's in high school and she happens to be mixed, and this episode, being that we're both mixed ethnicity, and you brought up earlier, I was thinking like, yeah, that's something in common, that we have a similar experience growing up, and like how people perceive mixed people, I guess. And the girl in the story, they had a form going around, and at the time they didn't have a box when they were answering surveys about ethnicity, like, oh, are you black, are you white, are you other? Or they didn't even have an other. They just had like Asian and Hispanic or something. So she was like, but why is there no, like, I can't even choose two boxes because I am black and white. And the teacher was like, no, don't, just pick one. It's not that difficult. And then her friends who were black were like, just check the black box. Like, why would you, like, just do that? Like, of course you're black. Like, people see you and they think that you're black, so check that box. And she's like, but I'm mixed. I'm not just one thing. This is not me. And the episode went on, and the end of the story, me and Tia were both like, that's where they went with it. It was basically, it felt like because her friends who were black felt like she was one of them, and they felt bad about her not wanting to be associated with them. They took it personally. The fact that they felt that way, that made her be like, well, I guess I should check the black box. And in the end, I can be mixed and black, but they never talked.
I don't know what that means.
Yeah. And then they never really talk about her other side, which she is white too. So.
And they didn't show any of her white friends.
Not in that episode. So for me, it's a thing where that situation for this character definitely paints a picture of, she felt one way that, hey, I'm mixed. My parents are, this person's white and this person's black. They came together and they made me, and I'm both of them. So I'm a mixed ethnicity person. And then that's her point of view. That's what she wanted to fight for, to have them add a box that said that she can be mixed or other or whatever. And but the fact that her friends had an opinion of her and felt like she should do a certain thing, that kind of changed her point of view in a way that was really not really benefiting her. It was mostly to appease their insecurities and their past experiences. And it wasn't just about her understanding them, it was about her doing things that made them feel better. And that's just kind of a single story about kind of what we've been talking about, where we do really need to be careful where, I guess, whose opinions we value.
And even where we see our identity, because even at the end of the day, it's not even race
Yeah.
or ethnicity.
Yeah, so I mean that was just one part of her journey, where it's like, race is obviously, or ethnicity, not the most important thing. It's a part of what makes us who we are, but ultimately, when viewing other people's opinions, it's important to value them in a way that we're all human, and it's respectful to hear what people say and not just want to shut people up, but in a way that is not causing you to lose what's important to you, and especially what's important to God, and what because he's given each of us a purpose, a calling, and a walk that we need to walk out. So anyone like listening to this, I that's the only thing I think, well, that's one of the main things I would encourage, is really be careful who you hear and are hearing from and listening to, because if you're surrounding yourself with people who are not for you or not good for you, they could be shaping you in ways that are not for your good or not healthy. And you could be losing yourself or losing your voice, and that's something that's not, you're not created to be someone else. You're created to be who God created you to be. So I don't know if that came together, but that was what I was thinking about when you asked me that, because that you were mentioning ethnicity and growing up and all these issues, and everything that surrounds how race and ethnicities in our culture and in our country are such a hot button with a lot of people.
Thank you for sharing that. So we can go ahead and close in prayer. I'll close us out this time because today was my topic, and next week will be your topic. We'll see what you come up with. Surprise. So let's go ahead and pray. Lord, I thank you for who you've made us to be. And I thank you for how different each person is, and the many facets that make us into who we are. And I think the unfortunate thing that happens, especially with what the enemy is trying to do and is being very successful in many ways at, is to have us identifying with things that don't fully matter. Whether it's I'm an artist, or I'm a woman, or I'm a pilot, or I'm this ethnicity, or I'm from this country, or I'm this religion. Well, I don't know about the religion one, because I believe I'm talking to Christians here. Or even just I'm this denomination, because a lot of people identify really heavily with denominations, even though I don't believe that should be a thing. So in this prayer, I ask you, Lord, to show and reveal the things that might be the reasons for the listeners to be comparing themselves, to have insecurities, to care so much about what other people think of them, to the point that it deafens them to your voice and what you're trying to say. Please clear the pathways to their heart, to their spirit, and help them to hear from you clearly what it is that you've called them to do on this earth, who it is that you've made them to be on the inside, what their purpose actually is. Because I do believe that that will make way for all of the other symptoms to go away, because I do think that comparison and insecurities and people pleasing, that's all a symptom of a greater problem of just not knowing who you are. And so I just pray over those who are listening, who are struggling with this right now and dealing with it, that they'll just lay the burdens at your feet, and that you'll help them, and that this will be a turning point in their lives to fully commit to you as a child of God, especially in these times. We don't know what's coming up next. Nobody saw this coming, the coronavirus stuff. Like, you just don't know when your life is going to be turned upside down, when things are going to change. But one thing always remains the same, and God, it's your love, and it's your truth, and it's the power and authority we have in Jesus Christ. So I pray that those listening will walk in that power and authority, and will understand who they are and identify as your child, and just the wonderful gift that is. What an honor, what a privilege that is. And I pray all of this, Lord, in your Son Jesus' name, amen. All right, you guys, thanks for listening to episode 14. If you want to support this channel, we do have a PayPal. It's paypal.me/Kytia L'amour. If you want to keep these things coming, I thank you so much for everybody who has been donating. I just think that's amazing. I'm always blown away every single time that you would put any resources into what we're doing, that this means that much to you, that you would sow a seed. If you want, and if you're listening to this on YouTube, you can leave a comment on what you think about this topic, what you've learned about this topic. If you're on any other platform, please leave a review if you'd like, if you please. Follow, subscribe, listen. Let us know how we're doing. And Jor-el, is there anything that you wanted to alert them of or remind them about?
There's a virus out there.
No.
Oh, people probably know about that. So, no, I'm good.
Okay. All right, you guys. We'll talk to you next time. Until then, be blessed. Bye-bye.
All right, bye.
This is my light, and I'm gonna let it shine away. We're glowing through it.